Good morning, Volleyball Coaches of Canada. It's May 15th. Starting a little bit late here, but it's all good. We have an hour with no other than Jesse Knight. Jesse Knight has done stuff internationally, across the pond, in the US, in Canada. He's done it really all. So our big focus today is going to be youth development, techniques on training, and anything that you guys bring forward. So feel free to ask questions in the comments, and we will get started. Jesse, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Why don't you give, we got coaches East Coast to West Coast here, so some people might not know how big you are in the volleyball community, but this is your opportunity to brag. Go ahead, tell us about you.
Yeah, well, like you said, I've coached pretty much every level we have in the world. I've been part of Team Canada, head coach with the younger teams, and assistant with the senior team. Coached pro in Europe for a bit, coached in the NCAA, was a head coach in the U Sports with the University of Calgary, for that assistant UBC. And now I run a prep school on Vancouver Island for high school.
And how's that working out? That's kind of a state-of-the-art thing type of, I know hockey does it, but, on a volleyball side, you're kind of, the first person to go down this road. So how's that working out for you?
Great so far. We have two athletes on the national team that are at our school,
Cool.
Full provincial team level athletes. Athletes can come from anywhere across Canada and stay and train North Vancouver Island. It's a public school agreement or arrangement, so there's no expense for the academic piece, just for the training piece, unless, of course, you decide to transfer from out of province and actually attend a school in BC. But out of province students usually use online courses or distance learning courses from their home provinces.
Okay, and now does that transfer into like a club season? Do you have club that kind of coincides with that, or how's the structure?
We have 3 clubs in the area, so what we do is we try to match through video before they arrive, tryouts through video,
okay,
and try to match them to the appropriate level or appropriate club team
in
the area. And if it doesn't work out, we will either explain that it's probably not going to work out for that aspect, and then they can make the choice if they want to come or not, and some just come and train. So. Got
it. Now, do they stay in dorms? Do they stay with, families that kind of billet them? How does that work with people that are out of town?
Yeah, we piggyback on the international student program, and we use their billets. And their structure, and then we also have some from the community, some billet families from the community.
Sure.
Stuff as well. So the price there ranges. I mean, some people have stayed here for free. Some people stayed for $800 a month.
So is this something that you do personally, or who are the coaches that you have under your wing there that help with this program?
We hired Julie Young. Julie Young is an ex senior national team captain and a skill development coach, and she was working for MRU at the time when we kind of snagged her. It was a tough sell when we brought her to Vancouver Island. But yeah, so Julie Young and myself do all the on-court training.
So what college were you at there in Vancouver way back in the day, 2003? Langara. Was it Langara?
That's right.
Langara. Okay, so that was the first time I ever met you. How has your coaching changed with the development of the game between the Langara days and how you've coached Team Canada and all those high-level teams?
Well, first of all, I want to pretty much contact every player I ever coached every 2 years and apologize because the game progresses so fast, and you as a coach, as we all know, we progress so fast.
Sure.
And I remember someone said, "Well, you said this." I said, "Yeah, I did. You're right. That's not how I feel or think about things today." So,
right.
Obviously, we're all progressing at a rate that 2003 was not even close to the same person coach that I am today. How has the game advanced? Well, first of all, if you want a real broad scope of things, the speed and the serving differences have completely changed the game.
And we're talking on both levels, right? Men and female, or just female, or
men and,
okay,
exactly. So we got to remember is the minute that the ball could hit the tape, and the minute that women were 6'2", 6'3", and could jump and float the ball down at you, changed passing technique completely. So I mean, in 2003, it was probably the beginning of the mindset shift, but today, to me, passing is a completely different skill than how I performed it as a player. And then the speed of things offensively, so from blocking and anything to do with offense versus defense, is obviously progressed tremendously.
Right. So, what are the major differences now? Like, I think you're extremely unique that you've been able to coach overseas on a U.S. side, on a Canadian side, at the highest levels on all three spectrums. What are the main, what are main factors of training methods that you see different in the various countries?
Every country's got a different philosophy. I mean,
Sure.
I loved my time in Europe, some of the small countries, how they could bind together so easily. I mean, if you look at Belgium, it's like a city, really, in population. So they could do some things within their entire volleyball community and make changes quickly. I will say, I do believe that Canada is a bit stagnant in our development, and I'm not sure why. I won't pretend like I'm not, but we're a bit stagnant, and in that we're not allowing athletes to train and play as athletic as other countries. What we do is, for some reason, is we almost overcoach in some ways and promote things like we don't want jump setting. I've heard university coaches say, I don't really care if they jump, I want the ball at a location. The problem is there's a level out there that a location isn't going to do it when someone's hitting against, a 6'6" middle in the women's game, or 6'5" middle and a 6'3" outside, or 6'4" outside. You're in a phone booth. You got to create one-on-ones. And it's just one example of where we in Canada sometimes, it's not us in Canada, but I see it a lot where we would promote what's good for the team more than what's good for the development of an individual. That's the perfect example. A setter not getting truly developed because it's better for the team to have a good set, as opposed to let the setter go and try to create and provide one-on-ones and add speed and maybe sacrifice a good set during the development piece. But at the end of the day, if you get all three, if you get the speed, the one-on-one deception, and the location, it's tough. It's really tough to defend. And if you get a chance to watch Team USA or some of the better China, like their setter development is just incredible.
Right.
It's almost impossible with a great pass to defend.
So, as a coach, we wear many hats. What would be your specialty? Is that setting is kind of your niche, if you will, that you enjoy the most, or is it working with outside hitters, liberos, everything?
I don't really have a specialty, so to speak.
Yeah.
What do I enjoy? I don't really have a specialty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, working with setters, I was on a webinar last night with Ryan and Carol Hofer from BC. They did Volleyball BC did a segment with them. We're incorporating in Canada, obviously, more techniques on, play, game-like situations. What are your, sort of focus points when creating a practice for, we'll call it high-level youth club athletes? Is it lots of drills, 2 or 3 drills? Is it a lot of gameplay? Is it a mix of everything? What would you suggest for coaches?
Okay, so we got to break this down, I think, quite a bit.
Okay.
Because transfer is how you're going to have success as a team. There's no way around it. You have to play in a game-like setting. But the problem is that transfer can also stifle development. So there's this fine balance, and the three principles of training they have to stay in harmony. And you can't avoid this. And I know we're promoting transfer because it is accurate and effective. But in an athlete's development, there has to be progressive overloading. So the three principles of training are progressive overloading, transfer, and recovery.
Okay.
So how do we keep those in harmony without sacrificing the development of a team? And this kind of goes back to that concept. So if you're a club coach of a team, you have to be in a transfer setting the majority of time. Now, how do we provide development for the individuals? So I'll give you an example of how this could be detrimental to the individual's potential. If you throw a kid in a transfer setting and they're goofy foot, will they ever not be goofy foot, right?
Okay.
No, they will literally just transfer their ability to be goofy foot. And it's just it's an obvious example. So in Canada, like in the youth sports, we're at this disadvantage because we have this extremely long season. Like when we get there in September, we're almost in our compete season like 4 weeks later. So there's really no time for development.
Sure.
In the U.S., they do a job in the NCAA where we have our season, which is the fall. And in the spring, it's a complete 100% development time. So transfer in that time of the year is not as much of a priority. It's part of the balance in the training, but there's individual development and then try to get into a transfer so they see if they can do it in a game-like setting. But the beauty of that time of the year is there's no pressure of winning. There's no pressure of competing. The transfer is a real pure time to just try to get better in a game-like setting with the skill that you learned in practice, maybe the day before or that day. So the problem we have in our development system here in Canada is that we have very little training time. And so if you want your team to be successful, if you have 4 to 6 hours of practice, you're probably going to have to be a transfer a ton. Like you're going to probably have to be 5 of those, if not 5.5 hours of those 6, you need to be in a transfer setting for your team to be as successful as you want them to be. So how the heck are we going to find a way to get these athletes developed? That's the challenge that we have to sort of sort out. Some of these clubs that are growing and they get their own facility, they're starting to do a better job. They're finding individual times. I think, Dave, with your club, you talked about that a little bit as well, where they can do a little bit of skill development.
Yeah.
But the real challenge, how do we do it in a non-competition season? Because that's when you're really going to get better. If I were to start working on a skill and I transferred into practice, I'm starting to feel as soon as the lights, camera, action, pressure of the game, that's gone. That skill or that skill acquisition potential is gone because the pressure of the game is going to put me right back to what's habitually mine, and that's the old habit. And so we're kind of in that conundrum where we have to find a balance of it all. But to answer your question, if you want to have success in the game, 100% you have to be in a transfer-based setting.
Okay, so you would. I know that a lot of people have gone the direction of playing, practicing out of system all the time, like 80% of the time. I think Tom Black talked about it, and just with the transition and whatnot, passing platform, all that stuff. I know you've done a lot of mentoring with lots of coaches across Canada, in your years of service. Is there a mentor that you have that you go back to as this game changes and kind of challenge, and have those conversations with? And who is it?
It's critical. Like, I don't know how. First of all, I wish there was more opportunity for coaches not only to have mentorship, but to also get into a higher level, like to be a part of the war room and be a part of the day-to-day in a real professional or high-level situation. And it's just not as prevalent as other countries. Like the pro system in Europe just allows coaches to be like the Division III coach is with the elite team coach all the time. You know what I mean? So,
right.
And the NCAA provides that. My mentors in the past, unfortunately, Carl's passed away, but Carl McGowan, during my entire career, when I was coaching, I leaned on every couple of weeks, I want to say. I'd call him and give me heck about what I'm doing wrong. And if anybody knows Carl, that's how it went. And if you came to my gym, you'd just take it over and start yelling at me, I'm doing this wrong, I'm doing that wrong. But that's kind of part of the process. Carl opened up doors to so many people to call.
Right.
And so my mentors today are more like colleagues.
Sure.
So Ryan Hofer and I actually talked for a couple hours yesterday just about leadership.
Yeah.
Keegan is a good friend of mine. He's the head coach of the University of Washington. We stay in contact and call each other regularly. Sam Cross and I talked to at Cal about 3 weeks ago. Keegan and Sam both worked at St. Mary's as assistant coaches right after me. I think Sam was right after me and Keegan was after him. So we've all sort of stayed in contact. But now it's just about it's about colleagues, to be honest.
Sure.
As I guess the older generation has moved on from the sport.
Okay. I got.
Dave, which is a problem.
Oh, you're not that old. Come on now. Glenn Wheatley from BC. You know who Glenn Wheatley is probably. From your international experiences, what are the differences regarding athletes focusing on one sport or being trained in multi-sports? Good question, Glenn.
Great question. I was in the gym. I feel like it was before COVID. We were working on steps with middles, and I was just trying to teach them I had to teach them how to run. We had to start that far back. Like if you watch athletes these days, they want to swing their arms back and on a step, and they don't know how to run. And I use the analogy, like, remember track when you had the high knees and you had to drive your elbows? And they said to me, no, I never did track. I'm like, how do you get through your entire life, like middle school, and not do track? We need to find a way to have multi-sport training. Like we have a real problem, not only just from the motor learning problems, but I think the pressure of different sports, or the different pressures from different sports, the psychological aspect of figuring out how to be successful in hockey opens your mind to more creativity, for example, that you could provide as a scorer in volleyball. So not only is it from the motor learning and the motor patterning, I think there's a psychological aspect that we're missing out. And the problem is like we just talked about those hours. We only have a couple hours and everybody's pulling, and that's one of the things that is part of the development problem that we have here in Canada, and one of the things that we're promoting at the prep school. So what we do is we, at the prep school, try to find a way for all their volleyball training to be done during school hours. Mm-hmm. So before and after school, they can go play soccer, basketball, or whatever they want. And then what we do is we actually carve out a season plan with different seasons where they're going to peak, their load periods, seasons where they're going to be in multiple sports, and so that we're not burning them out. And we're counting jumps. We're figuring out what they need to have physically to be able to relate to different sports. Our strength coach is Chris Berglund, who you know pretty well. We're even talking about, okay, well, what do different sports need from physical training perspective? Like I was watching the Michael Jordan documentary the other night.
Awesome
he was talking
documentary.
about how he was baseball trained, and that's why he failed, because he wasn't basketball ready. And obviously that was
don't cut out on me now.
accurate, because the next year he just went off.
Yeah.
And so that's been a big piece of what we're trying to do in prep school.
Yeah, and everyone's talked about this multi-sport, but with that being said, it's funny because I have one of my coaches is a high level, or his son's in rep hockey, and it takes up, and they encourage multi-sport, but also hockey takes up 6 days of the week. So it's like, how do you even do multi-sport when you're playing these high levels? And Sarah Pavin was in town back in November, and I asked her in one of our meetings, I said, what do you do in your off season? She goes, I don't even look at a volleyball. And she goes, I go play pickleball, I go, play basketball, squash, that sort of stuff. But she goes, I will not even touch a volleyball for, I think it was like 3 or 4 months type of thing. So I thought that was really interesting coming from the world champion. And I think we all talk the talk. Yeah, multi-sport. And I think we're more receptive of that than other sports, and I'm going to throw basketball under the bus here. I think, basketball is one of those ones that we get as many volleyball players from basketball because basketball pushes their athletes away from the sport. But yeah, I think this is something we need to do a better job in, but I don't think we're necessarily the worst of sports in that situation. So, Andre is online. He is the international coach for the women in Ireland. And he says, in Eastern Europe, we finish with a big step before the spike jump. Why is it that most players in Canada, players finished with a small step, almost like a small hop before jumping? I'm just going to continue on the question here. I noticed the following North American games had a few players from Canada while I was coaching a university team here in Ireland. Okay, so it's about the final step on approach. Any thoughts?
Which step exactly? The first left, or where are we at? Left, and then which step are we talking about?
I would, based on the question, I'm going to anticipate that it's the final left. The final in Eastern Europe, we finish with a big step before the spike jump. Maybe we could be talking about the second step. Who knows? Maybe we'll ask Andre, if you're listening, if you can just clarify that, and we'll come back to that question.
Answer.
Sure, let's go with it. Sure.
Yeah, well, I think that so many athletes, first of all, have a rhythmatic approach as opposed to utilizing the steps appropriately. They just become just the same old no matter what. And if that left step is too big, which a lot of players have, then that's slowing down the end result. So if your left step is very big and your last two are really small, the last two are really the ones that are going to get you off the ground. It's actually working against you, and the momentum of the left step and the direction of it should lead you into your last two powerful steps. So it should be small left and then a giant right left to explode at the ball. I don't know if that's answering, in my opinion anyway.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, I mean, we'll let him circle back on that one. I know he's watching right now. So Andre, if you want to circle back on that, we'll make sure to get your question in. We're gonna circle back all the way to multisports here. Chris Russ, hey Jesse, following up on multisport question, how do you balance that with all the training that clubs, / provincial programs / other sports require kids to play year round? Example, a kid can play school ball, club ball, beach, and provincial team. That takes them back to September where it all starts again. How do we balance that?
It's how can you peak 3 times a year? Like it's almost impossible, right? But the one thing that we're trying to promote or trying to help kids with is that the physical training prepares you to add more of a load. So if you were to just start, that's that type of year, you will never be able to peak 3 times, right? There's no way. And in fact, you could argue it'd be hard to peak because you're not getting enough recovery time in the year.
Right.
So what we're trying to do is match the physical training to the appropriate load is the best that we can do to appease. So we have an athlete, Sasha Haldane, Jason Haldane's daughter. She's at the training center, Argentine athlete. She comes down here and lives on the island, and she plays soccer for the high school while she's here. So her load, and she plays basketball at home actually as well. So her load is enormous, and she struggles when she's not here, but basically tremendously with being able to be consistent. But as soon as she gets here and gets about, I'm going to say 2 months of physical training, and all of a sudden her consistency gets way better. So I think the only answer, and it's not a good one, because I don't think I'm not a strength coach, but I'm sure they'd all agree that it's so hard. But the only answer is to try to match the strength to the load so that no one's breaking down and they can perform as best as possible. But yeah, it's a real problem. The other thing is if we can manage their training schedules daily better so that school isn't so long and demanding, and they can get appropriate recovery and nutrition during the day. I know that's harder said than done.
Yeah.
That's going to help as well.
Now, I know Kerry McDonald, former UBC coach and working with Volleyball Canada, an absolute genius at, doing, statistics on repetitions of jumps and stuff like that. I know there's that app. We've talked about it in other conversations, the Vert app. Is there something that we can do at a club level or at a school level where we can monitor how many jumps they do in a practice, or how much, just their ability, and how much time they're on the court, so that there's not as many injuries in the future.
Well, you can get that jump counter.
Yeah.
That Kerry talks about. But the one thing is to start to schedule. The one thing you can do is you can do it in your head. You just get a basic idea, and maybe you don't have without a jump counter, I can just kind of approximate how long people have been jumping in this particular drill.
Yeah.
But I think the big thing that club coaches can do is that they can start to recognize that some practices need to be without jumps. I think
sure.
That's where you can just you can just kind of recognize, this is what we're going to do in this practice. The club team went to that tournament at Douglas College, and they ended up playing. I think it's 4 days straight, or it's 3 days straight. But they ended up playing back to back to back on the first day, and then it's a giant load. It's insane. And they obviously didn't do well in the tournament, so as a result. And then the next day they had 3 matches, and the next day they had 3 matches, and so right away you have to adapt the physical training on Monday. Right away we adapt to Tuesday's practice to no jumps at all, and just stuff on the ground. Right, Monday being off. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Just adapt what you're doing. Yeah.
And I think that's something that we all can do a better job on. I mean, like when my teams play on a weekend and we have a practice on Monday, we usually take the Monday off, just because they've played, 7 or 8 matches in a 2-day period type of thing. Right. So, but yeah, anyone who doesn't have that Vert app, it's really good. And, it's very helpful and really opens your eyes on, the load on the joints and stuff like that. There's different variations of it. So, Glenn Wheatley, I see you often working with individuals or small groups in your personal training career. How does your approach change when working with 2 to 3 kids rather than a team setting? Good question, Glenn.
Yeah, the complete focus changes to the individual. It's not about the team. And transfer, the only way we would create transfer is, so basically how we would literally just focus on the skill development, the motor patterning, and trying to rep that, and then find a way with the small group to make it over the net transfer base as possible. So, and the thing is what we're trying to create is this is the free place with no pressure of a score, or making a team, or trying to win a game or whatever. It's just a time for the person to get better. So the mindset right away is what we're trying to accomplish, and then get after the skill development. So for example, let's go back to passing.
Sure.
The biggest mistake that a lot of passers make is that they put their platform out in front of them too soon.
Okay.
And then when they track a float, like so. And what their platform angle does is it takes them away from towards the target. What we have to do is we have to keep our platform down while we're chasing the float, so that we're ready to pass. Then we can create the angle to the setter. And so, but a lot of players get that up too early, even if they've been taught hands down or platform down. Even then, like if you watch Alexa Gray, whenever she struggles, her platform comes up too early, and that ball floats like heck in the international game. And that's what she gets in trouble is it gets up here too early like this, the ball floats, and then she takes it, and it goes left or right and kind of gets after it. That's just a time to really hone in on keeping it down, creating the angle, playing the float on the angle, and finishing to target, for example. Just in an opportunity where there's no pressure to succeed. It's just pure technique.
Now let's stick on passing here. There's a lot of coaches, and I asked Shannon this, it was on Tuesday. There's a lot of thought on it has to be midline, center line, all the time, every time, that sort of thing. And then there's outside of the body passing platform and stuff. Left is right, right is wrong. What is your thought process? Let's dive deeper into let's aim it at a club perspective. There's a lot of club coaches on here that we want them to take stuff back to their teams. Let's go deeper into passing and your thought process on training.
Well, first of all, everything that everybody thinks and knows about volleyball is correct. And so when we get into these debates, I kind of scratch my head and laugh a little bit, because the reality is that everybody's correct for a certain situation. So,
Sure.
like, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many situations in volleyball. You're right. This is what you. So I'm going to give you first of all an example. If the ball is served cross court, the setter is in between you and the server, then you don't have to create much of an angle, and you would really focus on trying to get that ball in your midline, work with your footwork, and then pass it pretty much straight on. I mean, it'd be a really small degree of an angle.
Okay.
But if you're passing the line, you have to create an angle to deflect ball to setter, right? It has to go. So the should be on creating an angle. Now, whether it should be in her midline or outside of her body is not relevant. If it's a good server. A good server is going to make the ball float, and then you have to chase that ball and find a way to make play. So the ball should dictate if it's in your midline or outside of your body. We know we'd love to have the ball more in our midline, but right away with a bit of an angle, you're a little bit out of your midline anyways when you're passing line. So I guess my point is that, first of all, it's all situational, right? So what about a deep pass? There's no way you can get on a really hard 42 mile per hour floating deep serve. I don't know anybody who can get all the way back and get stopped and playing a ball in their midline. So they end up having to play behind them, or they end up choking up or making a play like this. So there's another situation that you have to kind of coach to the situation. And then that one would be outside of your body. Most coaches would agree. It's either I call it the P dog or the drop step, and try to make that play when the ball floats up high on you, or with hands. That would be another really great option. So I don't know that anybody's right or wrong on that, Dave. I really think that it's situational volleyball, and we have to understand the moment and try to teach our athletes to be able to understand every scenario and react appropriately. Okay. But I would prefer, I have these two rules. When you're playing a cross-court server, footwork is the priority. Mm-hmm. Get to your midline and pass ball if you can. Mm-hmm. And then when we're playing a line server, like a line passer, mm-hmm. then I want that angle created early, and I want you playing the float on the angle, which means the ball, you might be a little bit outside of your body sometimes. It's not what I want, but I do want footwork as well. I just want arm work as the priority, because that's, in essence, what's going to happen when you're playing a line serve.
Now, you might ruffle some feathers here on this question, but I mean, everyone has their opinions on it. You know, in development, it's all about ball touches. At U13, there's a lot of triple ball and stuff like that, which everyone has, again, their opinion on. What are your thoughts on forcing athletes to underhand pass at U15? And I'm not sure if this happens at every province, but I know in certain provinces, you're not allowed to set a serve. In your opinion, is this something that you support, or is it something that you would, if you had the chance, would change to maybe U14? Anything goes here.
You're putting me on the spot. Who's listening on this?
There's a lot of people listening on this, Jesse. So we all have opinions, right? So
I disagree with the rule wholeheartedly, and because, first of all, I wish women would use their hands more in the women's game. We'll start there. I really wish that they would use their hands on service more, and they just don't. And I don't know why. I'm sure it's subjectional. I mean, different people have different reasons. But one of them is because they don't get to practice it enough, and that's because of that rule.
Sure, maybe.
We're creatures of habit, so that's a problem, I think. So I also know that if they're not comfortable, the rule then should be, in essence, the other way. We should be promoting it, because it's a really great tool to have to be able to take a float serve in your hand, like the men's game. You know what I mean? So for the women, I think it's really counterproductive. Then we have the whole habitual, like, we're all trying to create positive habits, good habits. And then we start creating different weird things to be able to make a play when the ball's, up there. Then you're going to break those habits. And so I get why they were doing it.
Sure.
But I don't think, and I'll take another step here, I don't think that the rule has a grasp on what a serve looks like today. Yes, we could all, and when I played, and I'm showing my age again, play with a white ball where it couldn't touch the net. And I got everything in my midline. It was really simple. Unless it was a rip, a spike serve, spin serve, sometimes you're messing around with a dive or what have you. But for the most part, anything that was you got in your midline, and you could pass through forearms. But today, with that ball screaming at you from a downward trajectory or a flat trajectory, and it can hit the tape and everything else. I think we need to equip, like I just said about passing, with as many weapons as possible.
Sure.
Drop step on deep, hands, how to angle, how to get in your midline on the cross. You know what I mean? Like we've got to coach and prepare athletes for all situations. So I think it's counterproductive.
Fair enough. And this is an open forum, right? So, but Donna Sales wants you to know that she is listening. So, here we go. Ian Bennett. Are there any skills that you believe should have distinct mechanical differences between males and females? Good question. Tough question.
Yeah. The difference between the male and the female athlete is strength, right?
Right.
And so a man can power their way out of situations, so they don't have to be as technically, they can just get away with things because they can just power. I'll give you an example. Like just an obvious one, just with the game, is that if you shank a ball, to deep one, a man can step in there and just power that ball right across the net or right across the court all the way and make a decent set. A lot of young girls for sure struggle with that, so right away, in essence of the question, technique becomes more prevalent in the women's game because if you give up some of those plays, we can't power our way out of it, is the best way to say it. But some ones that come to mind is like when you're making your transition move from pass to hit and power, for example, a man doesn't have to get all the way out. They literally can turn their feet and jump because they're in the air so much longer and with more power off the ground. They can literally just approach the net and still get an angle on a 45 to go get the ball because they can just turn their feet and jump and power into the ball. Whereas some women can do that, but lots can't. So the emphasis technically is so important that they have a great transition move out of the court to go get the ball. You know what I mean? It's just one example. Mm-hmm. And then the game, like the hands for passing. There's a whole bunch of different things. But I'm not sitting here and saying that a woman can't do things that a man can. I'm just saying that it's the strength component provides different necessities. Technically, it just does. Are they looking for something specific?
No, I don't think so. I think you relayed the same message Tom Black did, and it's just trying to but the women's game is speeding up. There is becoming more power than 10, 15 years ago and whatnot. So so it is evolving. So, but no, great answer. Rick Scott from Dalhousie. What are the two to three biggest areas you believe our young athletes, 14 to 17-year-olds, Canadian athletes need to improve on to be more successful? Good question, Rick.
Setting is, we almost have a bit of a setting pandemic in Canada. I shouldn't use that word, I guess, pandemic. But.
Okay.
Setting is the big one, Rick. Our development of setters compared to the rest of the world is not even in the ballpark. Right away, we have to have a mindset shift, I believe, in allowing young players to jump set right away. Like the jump set is the obvious one. I mean, I use this analogy all the time. It's insane to me that we hold the setters and the development ages to a standard where they have to make a perfect set. But a hitter can jump and make an error. And they make a lot of them. They jump up and miss hit and hit in the net and hit out and hit everywhere. But the setter has to stay down and make a perfect set. Why can't a setter jump up there and make a few errors and get better as well? Maybe the hitter should stay down for a couple and just get it over so the setter can develop. You know what I mean? But the biggest thing on the setter development is we have to create more one-on-ones. Like we just have to. And we have to improve the speed of the game. And that jump set, when we can debate what kind of jump set, whether it's a 1 foot pivot or like spin move or 2 feet. I mean, to me, that's another debate. But jump setting is a big one. And I'm going to give you a couple stories just internationally. I remember playing in a game against Japan. The setter took the ball on a tip and passed it purposely over to the left side. The left side jumped like they were going to hit it and turned and set it to right side because she drew a 2-man block. Gave her right side a one-on-one. Can our non-setters do that? So never mind our setter development. How about our non-setter development? whenever you play Brazil, every single person on that court's a setter, better setter than half of our setters in Canada. Like I remember Middle set a step to a little 5'3" setter in the middle of the game. She died. So when we played Brazil back, I'm getting old again, 2007, 2006 here. They hit that little 5'3" setter, and she would pull off, and they would go a 2-man block. And so you throw a tip on her, and she took it, and then Middle jumped, back set, and little setter ran a step on us in the middle of the game. So it shows the little differences in our non-setter development as well. Passing and serving are the other two.
Yeah.
Right? When you watch international games, I didn't read this. I think Chris Dahl told me this, that there was a study that China did that the ball floats 10 feet on average. So not like a 10-foot swell, like it floats 10 feet total in the international game on a good serve on the high end. And when we're talking about floats, whatever program I'm with, I always talk about float swells. The one that's the most important is the one when it comes to the passer. How much swell do you get? Like, is it a 3 or 4 inch drift, or is it a foot, or is it 2? I've seen like literally 2-3 feet drifts at the point of contact where, you know, a passer's just chasing it. And then when you watch, you know, university ball in Canada, I don't know what the average is, but I'd say it's probably under a foot or around a foot. The last time my eyes told me, but I just know that there's a tremendous amount of improvement that we can make there on that float serve. And then as a result, passing that, I think that we have to improve dramatically. We don't, as a result of not serving as well, then we haven't adapted our passing ability as well. It's just a natural relationship.
Yeah, and let's go deeper into the passing and serving. You know, at high school, and I know that the provincial associations have kind of come in line now, and they're all using Mikasa. But you know, in high school, sometimes you're using a Bodden. The next thing you're using is a Mikasa. Then you're using a Moulton. You know, depending on, again, the province and the level you're playing. You know, I know everyone's gonna have their own ball because I know there's money and financials in that equation. But how do we, you know, would it improve the game if we were training kids at school with the same ball that they use for club and then the same ball that they would use in post-secondary and so on and so forth? I mean, the ball makes a huge difference based on, especially serving. What are your thoughts on it?
I totally agree. Like in Europe, they always make a joke. There is only one ball. And I asked.
Oh. Fair enough. Okay.
That's a North American thing where we have all these balls. Really, I mean, they do a little bit over there, but yeah. No, if we were all using the Mikasa, it would develop so much. The Mikasa float, I don't know what the stats are. Maybe somebody online there can tell you. But it floats a lot more than any other ball.
I'm pretty sure Kerry McDonald could tell us. I think he did. I think he did a study on the actual Mikasa ball. So regarding how much force and impact, he got real deep into it, but I'm pretty sure Kerry McDonald has something. So Glenn Wheatley, so with hold on one second, Brenda, I'm going to come back to your question just because this question from Glenn is associated with what we're talking about. So with your comments about setter training, would it be safe to say that you are in favor of getting rid of the double contact rule on second contact as it's being looked at?
I didn't even know that. And that would help, wouldn't it? That would really help that development piece.
Sure, for sure. It was... Yeah, I mean... I forgot who brought it up, if it was Doug Reimer or if it was Shannon or maybe it was Glenn, but someone's brought this up before. So what are your thoughts on that?
I'd have to think a little bit more about it. I mean, you would hate to start developing a bunch of setters that double hit all the time.
That's true. That is true. Yeah. Yeah.
But right away, like we put so much pressure. Like if you think about the pressure that the setter faces, the pressure of first of all, the athlete is the high level athlete puts so much pressure on themselves. They're perfectionists.
Yeah.
Then you basically got to appease, your teammates, and every team usually has one that I need this much over here, all that crap.
Yeah.
And then you got the coach trying to tell you, that, and then you get the score, and you're the quarterback, and there's a whole bunch of things that really like hold a setter back from just playing free, which is a big problem. So that might actually as I think about it, might help that. That's one piece to take off if you can just get after it, right? And,
it's an interesting idea.
I suppose I'd be in favor for sure, but I'd have to think about it more.
Brenda Willis, is there something being done to train athletes in the U.S. that we aren't doing in Canada that you think we should be?
I think no, not really, because there's such big countries and everybody's every coach is going to have their different way. But I think that the U.S. came to the epiphany of transfer earlier than us, and that's why I think that Kerry McDonald is such a strong proponent of trying to teach coaches how to incorporate more transfer into their practices.
Yeah.
That is such just a staple to. Well, I can't comment on the whole country, but my time in California, that's such a staple to how they train. I mean, there's such a heavy beach influence, and beach training was so much about transfer, obviously, because they just play. So transfer would be one where if we could catch up fast, that would be a tremendous step forward. Their emphasis on serve and pass it's hard, right? It's hard to say because every coach does things differently. So I don't know that they're superior. I do think that there is a mindset difference collectively by the American coach to let athletes play athletic more. And I think there's a mindset collectively by a lot of Canadian coaches to overcoach and to worry more about position as opposed to being able to perform. So the example I use is defense. The California kid learns how to read, in 13, 14-year-old age categories. And the 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old Canadian kid, I think, learns how to get into a position more as the priority as a defender in the backcourt. And I think that might be the heavy beach influence of California and all the coaches that are from there. And their sort of trickle-down effect to their coaching tree. But yeah, I mean, that's one of those things that when I present, I always say, that's the one thing that I wish more Canadian kids understood is how to go through their eye sequencing and practice their eye sequencing as a defender and then get their eyes set in a peripheral point of contact, which is usually above the head, so they can see everything occur before it occurs and then get a better ball read and really focus on reading and defending the person as opposed to their systematic responsibilities or all those types of things. So,
now, what about on internet or across the pond? Is there something that they're doing over there that U.S. or Canada aren't doing, and we should be looking at a little bit more closely?
And my experience in Europe is that they're behind us in transfer, I believe, in Canada. I think that they focus on skill, or rep. But they do it at such a high volume that it almost works for them. The Italian model is a lot of reps, I'll tell you right now. But they just train at such a high volume and a high standard of, you have to perform that I think it's just a cultural difference in how they push people. So they might be a little bit behind us on the transfer. So that's why it's hard to debate what the right way is because there's lots of countries that are having tons of success.
Yeah.
The one thing I commented on this earlier that is different in Europe is that the countries sometimes are small enough that they can. So Belgium rose. I don't know what they were ranked before, but both Belgian men and women rose up the rankings pretty fast because they came together as a country and made a priority on a few things and made every development coach make sure that they did that. When I coached in the Euro Cup representing Sweden, we played Belgium in the second round, and their pro team took it to us. And they were the one pro team, I think, in the whole thing that didn't have any studs. Like they didn't have a Kim Glass, or they didn't have every team had imports that were studs. It was an all Belgian team, and they were literally all about 6 feet. So they weren't huge, and they just tore us apart. And I think they finished bronze in the Euro Cup that year. And I talked to the coach, said, wow, they were polished. And the thing he said is we came together as a country, he said it was about a decade ago, and we put a high emphasis on floating the ball better and an extreme speed offense. this jump set, boom, boom, boom. Like everything was just so fast. So they were doing that repetitiously as young athletes, that by that time, that pro team was just incredible. And Belgian women's team, I think they're in the top 20 now, or even higher. I don't know where they're at. But yeah, so that's one thing that they have an advantage, size.
John has a question here. We've talked about this in the past. Where can we improve with backcourt defense at the youth level? What's happening internationally and maybe not in Canada? So we're still on the, the difference between Canada and international.
So we got to plug in here because I'm about to die.
Okay, no problem.
Give me 1 second. All right. Defense. We have to get our weight transfer through the ball more. We have to read first and foremost. We have to learn how to read better. We have to make heavy emphasis on that. Eye sequencing. Get rid of the wandering eye. Go watch the sets. The backcourt player, they can gain nothing by watching a set. They need to read that setter. Everything, whether it's a dump or whatever, they can get that off of the setter and get their eyes on their man quicker. And then they got to get their eyes set above their head somewhere, whatever you as a coach has a focal point. Get their eyes squared peripherally, like all great skills in all sports. Peripheral eye sets are incredibly important. And start to see some cues and get some reads on some things, whether it's hand position, angles, elbow position, all these types of things. And then we have to, there's such a high emphasis internationally, especially Japan. My time with Mia, hopefully you get Mia on here, is dig location. It's getting a dig and giving up the free ball. I think Ryan did a study about 3 years ago. It was an 80% chance in Can West that it was going to be a kill anyway. So you dig, and you run around and give up the free ball. It's an 80% chance they're just going to kill it back at you anyways.
Right.
So that dig location is super critical. I was bored with MRU a few years back, so I did some analytics of my own, and I studied Can West volleyball, and I found a correlation. My only 100% correlation ever is I call it when the dog fight occurs between 20 and 25. Everything changes. You watch international women's volleyball, it's a lot like men's volleyball. It's a side-out game. But as soon as 20 to 25 occurs, all of a sudden it's long rallies in the women's international game. And so dig location was one of the things I wanted to look at between 20 and 25. And I found out that the team that dug the ball to their setter in system more than their opponent won 100% of the time between 20 and 25. And that was really, really, I did over 60 sets. I found 60 dogfights on and what that tells me is that dig location literally is probably the difference in those tight games. And if you ever get a chance, go watch that YouTube video on like this Chinese crazy long rallies of China program. I think it was like 3 minutes. And the dig location there is what's allowed the team to win. I think if you do the math on it, it's just a fun watch, and it would probably support what I'm saying here. Mm-hmm. Do you have dig location? Your weight transfer has to get through your dig, and every country teaches this different. So USA is always bellies, not butts. They're always diving. Japan is knee pads. Watch them down and slide through on their knee pads all the time. Eastern European always rolling around. I don't really know what's going on with all the rolling away and around, but probably some method or madness to the rolling around. But the big thing, if you want to dig that ball up and to a location, you weight transfer. Just like think about a tip, you want to run through and J that. That's how you control where you're going to want to dig the ball to. So we've got to find a way to get momentum through, whether it is bellies or knee pads. I think in development years, the ball is going to go hard enough to just step into it. If you just step into the dig, that ball is going to go up and with control in the middle of the court. Okay,
great answer. Colin Walker, how much does the competition format impact the way coaches coach? Example, win the tournament to move up or stay at that level versus peaking for the championship season?
I'm going to take a step back on this.
Okay.
This is a Canadian culture phenomenon that I challenge all of us right now to consider.
Okay.
I was watching the 1972 Summit Series, and what was Harry Simmons, the head coach. And if everybody followed that 72 Summit Series, well, I didn't, I'm too young, but anybody who watched the documentary watched Canada absolutely disgustingly beat the heck out of the Russians. Like Barbie Clark broke Larionov's ankle with a two-hander, and it just went on from there. And there was a press conference after they won, and the reporter asked him, "Are you embarrassed, or how do you think Canada will receive how you went about winning?" And Harrison had said, "It'd be a lot worse if we lost." So the thing I learned about my time in the U.S., and we're all human. We're not different competitors. We all have the exact same emotions, and we all have competitiveness in us. So there's cultural aspects, I believe, that change the way and how we compete.
Yeah.
And the American would be upset about losing. There's no question. But it drove them to fix it more than anything. What I mean is, we lost, I'm pissed, I'm going to get to work. I find a lot of Canadians, especially young athletes, I lost, it's like a character assassination on me. Like I'm literally, it's like crushing, like my worth, and blah, 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 blah. Like I don't know where the mindset goes. It's totally a subjectional mindset. Everybody's different. But the overwhelming response is almost like a personal attack on yourselves that you lost. You were going to lose. Like in the NHL, the first place team, I mean, the percentage of ties and losses is remarkable. I mean, you're going to lose, you know? And it's so, to be a better competitor, I think that we have to get better at learning how to lose and making that more constructive. So to go back to the question now, I think that there's way too much emphasis placed on competition. If there was a way to compete without a score almost to a certain age, or if we could get creative on changing the mindset on the process and how to do this or that, I think it would go a long way for this country, because coaches are the big party. I'm guilty as charged. Whereas we just focus so much on the win that we lost the process in so many ways. Not only like does it become too emotional and get messy and get coaches in trouble and all that, but I think that it also prepares us to be better as players individually, like technically or whatever we're trying to execute. Like I'll give you an example. How many coaches say, "I'm going to run speed," and as soon as it doesn't work, just back off of it? You know what I mean? Like, well, that's not going to get you to where you really want to go. It's just going to get you to the win in the small pond, right?
Do you think it's parent-driven, though? Or partially? Do you think this is parent-driven? Could it be parent-driven from, you know, like, my daughter has to be a Div 1 player. Well, she's Div 3.
It's a cultural phenomenon. Like, it's literally, the parents are the worst for it. They're the biggest. That's why at the school, I don't want it to disappear for the players. It's almost for the parents.
Fair.
You know what I mean? The players they'll still be keeping a score.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the first question a parent asks is, did you win? Not how did you play? Did you improve? Did you accomplish whatever your goal was? It was, did you win? You know, and not every parent, but you know what I mean? It's a really common question.
Yeah.
How'd you do? You know? So yeah, we've got to find a way to balance out the competition. Was there a country in Europe that they eliminated the score? I can't remember. They had a really creative way to do it. I wish I could. As I was talking, I was trying to think of it, but I couldn't really bring it up.
So everyone winning a medal isn't going to help us either, right?
Well, that's another.
I know. I just poked the bear on this one. No, fair enough. And I think we got to get away from that. You know, I know that not all provinces do that, and I just think, you know. I asked Hofer, I asked Tom Black. You know, we talked about the U Sport Nationals. Tom Black said, get rid of the backside of the draw. You win, you move on. You lose, you go home, and you increase the tournament with more teams as well. You know, and it's just like you go for it, right? So I get it on a club level. You know, people pay a lot of money to play club. Tournaments cost a lot of money. Kids want to get as many ball touches as possible, but I think there's a certain point where we just got to get rid of the backside and just be like, hey, learn how to lose, you know, like you said, you know, and the only way to learn how to lose is you lose, you go home, and you don't play for 16th place in Div 4 Tier 7 and still get a medal. So, Mike Tokley, it's been my experience that the biggest deficiency we see with young players, especially the girls, is poor arm swings. It results in weak attacking and burnout shoulders too soon. Advice on developing arm swing in our young athletes.
It's a really good point. Wet noodle syndrome, I call it, with the young ones. They look like a pool noodle. Well, the biggest thing, Mike, is core and that torque. There's so much shoulder in those swings. It's not only is it going to destructive for the shoulder, but the productivity of power and the productivity of the torque providing shot options with deception. So the person that comes straight at the ball and kind of hits right there, pretty simple. We know where the ball's going to go, right? Mm-hmm. The arm swing kind of goes. But if they turn at it, it's hard to do this on the camera. But they turn at it, they can hit every single angle. So whether it's a 20-degree torque or a 45-degree torque, there's a pile of different angles with that. And then when you add the thumb up and thumb down, how to train it. The only way, truthfully, is the 3 principles of training is we have to make sure they understand how to do it. So every coach can do that in different ways, whether that's in an individual or a video, you know what I mean? So that's the progressive overloading in the 3 principles of training. You got to find that, but you won't unless you get some sort of creative way in a transfer setting to get that done. So to me, like the big one is, cross-court ball control. You rotate 6 to 5 to 4 and out, or with the setter, and making sure that we are torquing through and then giving them some shot options or angles, shot goals. But we've got to get that done in a transfer setting that puts that emphasis. It's hard on a video to
for sure.
Take you through that, but I agree with you, Mike. And the core is the biggest thing. That torque is the most underdeveloped piece for a young female athlete, probably for sure.
Okay, we had a follow-up question from Colin Walker. The final question. So this was talking about the competition format and versus peaking. Who is responsible for changing the culture?
All of us. We're all guilty.
Agreed. Yeah.
I lost a national title to UBC by 3 points, and every point that was a technical error haunts me to this day. For example, like you just think about when the game's over, you think, man, if we just would have spent more time on this, and you get there and you have all these ambitions that I'm going to work on these things, and then all of a sudden we got to get a transfer. We got to win this. I got to win this preseason game. Like that's where I went as a coach. Oh my God, we can't let U of A beat us in the preseason. What is that going to do to us? You know what I mean? These things go in our minds, and so I was focused way too much in the preseason of that season on beating U of A in October, instead of just take your lumps and teaching your team to take your lumps if it's for the benefit of trying to get better at something. Is in retrospect so much easier, but all of us, parents, athletes are perfectionists. We got to help them with that. Mm-hmm. They can't handle losing. Coaches, we got to find a way to back off and respect the process. We just do.
For sure. Well, Jesse, if people want to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you?
Abstract Volleyball is the original company, so my email is at abstractvolleyball@gmail.com or info@abstractvolleyball.ca. Yeah, and I'm more than willing and happy and enjoy, to be honest, talking about my time is being spent more on leadership.
Sure.
These days, I'm in corporate consulting and leadership, and so the more people I talk to, I just keep adding little pieces to my presentations to these corporations. Mm-hmm. So as much as I welcome and love anyone that wants to reach out.
Awesome, Jesse. Well, I really appreciate you joining us. It's been great. We've had some great questions. I know this will be posted on YouTube, so anyone who did miss it, I'll make sure to send you the link. But I wish your family safety and in this time of COVID, and hopefully we get out of this as soon as possible. But it's, you know, at this point in time, it's we're in here for the long stretch. But it's been great talking to you, Jesse. I've known you for a long time, and I think this has been really helpful.
Dave, thanks for having me, and thanks for doing this. This is incredible, especially in this time, and we got something, right?
Yeah.
So thank you, and thanks all the coaches, and yeah.
Right on. All right, Jesse. We'll chat soon. Talk to you later.
Okay.
Bye.
Care, man.
So that was Jesse Knight, a man of many hats and been around in the volleyball world for many, many years. Thank you guys for joining in. Next Friday, we have Steve Manuels from UBCO women's team. That will be awesome. 11 a.m. Mountain Time. Just a heads up for anyone who ordered clothing. There's some delays regarding Pure later, but you know, I just want to throw a shout out to all the coaches who ordered. We raised over $700 for the mustard seeds, so that's pretty exciting stuff. And I'm looking forward to doing many more of these. We're going to have a beach one in after June 1st due to some NCAA rules and whatnot. But anyways, stay safe, and we will see you next Friday.